My name is Lena, and I'm 30 years old. I used to believe that some friendships were meant to last forever, the kind that start in college dorms built on late night confessions and laughter that echoes through the years. Sarah and I were exactly that, or so I thought. We met when we were 22, overachieving dreamers, sharing a dorm room and a love for indie bands no one else had heard of. Back then, we used to promise each other that no matter how life changed, we'd always be each other's family. I didn't know how fragile that promise was until the day she called me her sister, right before she destroyed my peace. After college, our paths split. I joined a law firm that demanded every drop of energy I had, while Sarah floated through life unsure but magnetic. Her charm made people follow her easily. Social media gave her a stage, and she loved it every comment, every tiny burst of validation. Still, I never envied her. I was happy for her in the way real friends are supposed to be. My husband Daniel often teased that Sarah and I talked more than he and I did. If she ever gets married, he used to joke, you'll probably be her maid of honor and her therapist. He wasn't wrong. When Sarah met Mark, quiet, grounded, and kind, I actually cried tears of joy. They fit, at least on the surface. Mark was everything Sarah needed to balance her restless energy. They married after 2 years of dating, and I helped her plan every detail of the wedding. When she announced her pregnancy 3 months ago, I was the first one she told. Lena, you're going to be the godmother, she said, squealing into the phone. I still remember that moment. I was sitting on my kitchen floor, smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. I didn't even hesitate before saying yes. From that day on, every text between us was about the baby shower. I wanted it to be perfect yellow theme, her favorite color, lemon macarons, pastel balloons, the exact cake flavor she once said she wanted for her future baby shower years ago. I even coordinated with the caterer personally. Daniel laughed at how obsessed I was. You're acting like it's your own baby, he said one night, handing me a cup of tea. I smiled. Maybe it's because I can't have one. The silence that followed was gentle but heavy. We didn't talk about it much, our fertility struggles, but the ache was always there. Sarah was one of the few people who knew. She'd cried with me when the last test came back negative. That's what made what happened later feel like a knife twist. The day of the baby shower arrived bright and full of warmth. Daniel and I drove over early to help set up. Mark greeted us at the door, all smiles, though he looked tired, the kind of tired new fathers in waiting often wear, like invisible armor. Inside the house shimmered with soft yellow decorations, exactly as Sarah had wanted. I took a moment to admire the sight, sunlight streaming through the windows, balloons glinting, the faint hum of excitement in the air. It was the kind of scene that makes you forget real life exists outside it. Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs in a flowing yellow dress, radiant glowing. The crowd of guests broke into applause. Cameras flashed. She looked like she was floating, happy, confident, adored. When she hugged me, she whispered, "You really outdid yourself, Lena. It's perfect." I smiled, relieved. That's all I'd wanted, for her to be happy. Lunch began with laughter. Our old college friends caught up across the table, and for a while it felt like nothing had changed. Daniel leaned over, whispering, "See you stressed for nothing." I grinned, stealing a bite of cake off his plate. Everything was fine. Until it wasn't. Everyone. Sarah's voice rang out from the center of the room. She was standing now, a champagne flute of sparkling cider in her hand. Before we continue, I have something very special to share. The crowd quieted instantly. I turned toward her, smiling. This was the kind of sentimental speech she loved giving. But then she said, "I want to thank someone who made this pregnancy possible." Mark frowned, confused. I noticed. Everyone did. Sarah pointed across the table directly at Daniel. "Everyone," she said, her voice sweet as sugar. "Meet the father of my baby." The world stopped. I didn't even understand the sentence at first. My brain refused to. Daniel's hand froze in mine. His face went pale, eyes wide with disbelief. Around us, the air thickened with silence, followed by an awkward, nervous laugh from somewhere near the back. Mark stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "Sarah, what the hell are you talking about?" She giggled a shaky, performative laugh. "Relax, babe. It's just a joke for Instagram. You know, a prank." For a moment, nobody moved. Cameras, lights, laughter that never came. I felt the heat rise up my neck, shame replacing oxygen. My throat tightened, but I couldn't cry, not there. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear. I wanted to follow him. Sarah lifted her phone, scanning the crowd. "Come on, people. Lighten up, she said, smiling at her guests as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of our lives. A few guests gave awkward chuckles. Most didn't. I could feel every pair of eyes flicking between Daniel and me, wondering, judging, gossiping in real time. Mark slammed his drink down. Turn the cameras off. Now. But Sarah only rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. It's content, Mark. Everyone does it. Don't be so dramatic. And that was when I saw it, the crack in her glow, the hunger behind her laugh. It wasn't about the prank. It was about control. She wanted attention, no matter who it burned. Mark stormed outside. Sarah followed, heels clicking like thunder against the floor. Their muffled argument bled through the open door, his anger raw, her voice defensive, childish. When Mark's voice rose, everyone heard it. I can't believe you'd humiliate your best friend like that. What's wrong with you? Sarah's answer came sharp, desperate. It was just a joke. Why is everyone so sensitive? I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my purse and whispered to Daniel, "Let's go." He didn't argue. As we walked toward the car, the laughter inside finally started again, forced, brittle, hollow. I didn't look back. But even then, part of me knew something inside her had broken long before that day, and I had been too blind to see it. The ride home was silent, the kind of silence that hums pressing against your chest until you can't tell if it's anger or heartbreak that's choking you. Daniel's fingers tapped the steering wheel, his jaw tight. I wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but all that came out was a shaky whisper. Why would she do that? He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the road, because she wanted attention, and she knew how to get it. When we got home, the house felt foreign. The same kitchen, the same couch, but my chest felt hollow, like someone had taken something warm from it and replaced it with ice. Daniel went straight to the bedroom, muttering, "I need a minute." I let him go. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the vase of lilies on the counter, Sarah's favorite flowers. She'd brought them over last week, saying, "For good luck before the shower." Now they felt like ghosts. When Daniel finally came out, he looked exhausted. "Lena," he said, rubbing his temples. "You know, none of that was real, right?" "I know," I said softly, "but it still hurt." He nodded, stepping closer, his voice low. "What she did wasn't a prank. It was cruelty dressed as humor. She used something sacred to you against you." That was the part that made me tremble. She knew. She knew what infertility meant to us, how many nights I'd cried in his arms, how many doctor's visits we'd sat through in silence. And she used that pain for a laugh. The next morning, my phone lit up with a dozen messages, all from Sarah. "Hey, don't be mad. It was just a joke. I can't believe you left without saying goodbye. You ruined the mood, honestly." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. Then another one came. "You're my best friend. Don't make this a big deal." Daniel saw me reading them and said quietly, "Block her. You don't owe her an explanation." But I couldn't. Not yet. Some part of me still needed to understand why. By the afternoon, Mark called. His voice was weary. "Lena, I'm so sorry about what happened yesterday. I had no idea she'd do that." "I know," I said. "You don't need to apologize for her." He sighed. "I've tried talking to her, but she doesn't get it. She thinks everyone overreacted. She even told me she was going to upload the video once she edited it." My stomach dropped. She recorded it. Every second, he said bitterly. "She set up hidden cameras. Said she wanted authentic reactions. She's obsessed with going viral. He paused and his voice cracked a little. "I'm done, Lena. I told her that last night. I can't keep doing this." That night, I told Daniel what Mark had said. He looked relieved, but sad. "Good for him," he said, "but it won't stop her from trying to make you feel guilty." He was right. The next day, Sarah called. I let it ring. Then she texted again. "You don't understand how hard this pregnancy is." I needed to laugh. "You're being dramatic. You've always been too sensitive." I could almost hear her voice, the dismissive tone, the way she always laughed off pain. But there was something else this time. A sharpness. Like she wanted me to feel small. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Again and again. Finally, I wrote, "You hurt me. You humiliated my husband. That's not friendship, Sarah." Her response came seconds later. "Oh, please, Lena, you're just jealous because I'm pregnant and you're not." My hand went cold. Daniel came into the room just as I dropped the phone on the couch. "She said it, didn't she?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He took my hands, his voice trembling with controlled anger. "Lena, that woman is not your friend anymore." I knew he was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. That night I scrolled through old photos, college parties, road trips, birthdays. Sarah's arm always around my shoulders, both of us grinning. There was one photo from senior year where she'd written on the back, "Forever Sisters." I stared at that word forever until the letters blurred. Later, lying beside Daniel in the dark, I whispered, What if she really doesn't see what she did wrong? He sighed. Then she's more broken than you think. The next morning, I woke to another notification. A group chat from old college friends. Hey, Lena, what happened at the shower? Sarah posted something weird last night, then deleted it. My chest tightened. I opened her Instagram. The account was private now, but her bio had changed. You can't trust anyone, especially the ones who smile the widest. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't about a single prank. It was about years of envy disguised as friendship. Still, I didn't block her. Not yet. Some part of me, naive, stubborn, loyal, kept hoping she'd apologize. But instead, that afternoon, another text arrived. I need a ride to my doctor's appointment. Don't ignore me again. No, please. No, I'm sorry. Just demand. That was when I finally saw her clearly. The version of Sarah I'd protected, defended, excused for years she was gone. I typed one last message. I can't do this anymore. You need help, Sarah. Please get it. Then I blocked her number. The relief was immediate, but so was the grief. Because losing a friend you thought was family doesn't feel like losing a person. It feels like losing a lifetime. For a few weeks, the quiet felt like healing. No messages, no calls, no half apologies disguised as jokes. Daniel and I slipped back into our routines, coffee in the mornings, long walks in the evenings, little pieces of normal life slowly returning. But peace has a way of fooling you. It makes you think the storm is over when really it's only circling back with new fury. One Saturday afternoon, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. A new number. I almost ignored it, but the message preview froze me. You can block me all you want, Lena, but you can't block the truth. Sarah. I didn't respond. A minute later, another came. Mark's leaving because of you. You always wanted what I had. Don't pretend you didn't. My knees went weak. I sat on the bed, heart pounding. Daniel came in, saw my face, and didn't even have to ask. He took the phone, read the messages, then set it face down on the nightstand. Don't answer her, he said. His voice was calm, but his knuckles were white. That's exactly what she wants. I nodded, but my mind was racing. Because of you. Those words dug into me. I hadn't spoken to Mark since his apology call after the shower. Could she really think we... No, she didn't think. She wanted to wound. That night, I dreamed of our dorm room again. We were 21, sprawled on the floor, painting our nails, while Sarah said, "You'll always be the calm one, Lena. I'll be the chaos." She'd laughed when she said it, but maybe she wasn't joking. The next morning, Daniel was already in the kitchen making coffee. She won't stop, will she? I asked. He sighed. She's unraveling. That's what people do. When they lose control, they start burning everything around them. Days passed, and the text stopped. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it was over. Then an email arrived. The subject line read, "You owe me." I hesitated before opening it. I shouldn't have. You think you're better than everyone because of your job, your husband, your stupid, perfect life. You ruined my marriage. Mark says you're the kind of woman a man can actually trust. I saw the way he looked at you. You can have him if you want. Everyone knows Daniel married you for money anyway. Enjoy playing the victim, Lena. It's what you do best. I stared at the words until the letters blurred. My hands were shaking so badly that coffee spilled across the counter. Daniel took the laptop from me before I could read it again. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled through his teeth. That's it, he said. We're done being silent. He called Mark that evening. I listened from the hallway as Daniel's voice grew sharp, deliberate. She's crossed every line, Mark. She's emailing Lena now, accusing both of us. Mark was quiet for a while. Then I heard him say, "I'm not surprised. I filed for divorce this week. My lawyer told me to keep records of everything she sends. Forward me the email." When Daniel hung up, he looked at me with a kind of sadness that wasn't for himself or even for me, but for what we'd all lost. "She's gone too far to come back," he said softly. "You can't help her now." But the guilt still lingered. I sat on the porch that night listening to crickets and wondering when kindness had turned into permission, when my compassion became her weapon. I'd spent years excusing her outbursts, her little lies, her dramatic tears. I told myself it was just her way. But maybe all along she'd been testing how much I'd forgive. 2 nights later, a notification popped up on Daniel's phone while he was in the shower. Normally I never looked, but the sender's name caught my eye, Sarah. My stomach dropped. I unlocked the phone. Her message was short, brutal. "You don't deserve her. I hope you choke on your pity." Then, before I could even process it, another one appeared. "You can't get her pregnant because you're not man enough. Maybe that's why you protect her so much." I felt my breath leave me. When Daniel came out, I couldn't speak. I just handed him the phone. He read it once, twice, then set it down gently as if any sudden movement might make him explode. He said nothing for a full minute. Then finally, she wants to hurt us both. That night, we sat in silence on opposite sides of the bed. There were no tears left, just disbelief. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was exhaustion, like being trapped in someone else's nightmare. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened my old email account, the one Sarah didn't have, and wrote a single line. If you keep contacting us, I'll take legal action. I didn't send it out of revenge. I sent it because for the first time I realized I was afraid of her. Afterward, Daniel hugged me and whispered, "You did the right thing." I wanted to believe him, but deep down, part of me still saw that girl in the dorm room, the one who used to braid my hair and tell me secrets. How do you grieve someone who's still alive? The following week, I received an unexpected message from Mark's sister on Facebook. "Hi, Lena. Just a heads up. Sarah's been telling people you had an affair with Mark and ruined her marriage. Most of us know it's nonsense, but you might want to be careful." My stomach twisted. Even from miles away, she was spreading rot. I thanked her and closed the chat, but the words clung to me. When I told Daniel, he took my hand. "Let her talk," he said. "Truth has a way of echoing back." Maybe he was right, but I still felt the sting of betrayal every time my phone buzzed. Every sound became a warning, every silence a trap. And just when I thought the chaos had peaked, a new email arrived. This one wasn't from Sarah, it was from the caterer. "Hi, Lena, following up on the remaining balance for Sarah's baby shower invoice. She told us you agreed to pay the rest. Could you confirm?" I stared at the message, disbelief turning into a bitter laugh. Of course, Sarah wasn't done using me yet. I read the caterer's email twice, then a third time, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. Sarah, who'd humiliated me, accused me, insulted Daniel, and now she wanted me to pay her bills. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Almost. I replied politely, explaining that Sarah had been the client, not me, and that I had already paid a partial deposit as a surprise gift before everything fell apart. I ended with, "Please contact Sarah directly for the remainder." An hour later, my phone rang. It was the caterer herself. "Hi, Lena. I just wanted to confirm I spoke to Sarah and she said you agreed to cover everything." She sounded upset. I took a slow breath. She's upset because she's angry with me, not because I owe her money. A pause on the other end. "I thought so." Her tone was odd. "Don't worry, we'll invoice her directly." When I hung up, Daniel was watching me from the living room doorway. "She's still trying to pull you back in," he said quietly. I know, I stared at the muted television screen, but not this time. Still, guilt prickled at the edges of my chest. I hated conflict. I always had. Even now, part of me wanted to explain myself to Sarah to make her see reason. But reason didn't exist with her anymore. 2 days later, another email arrived, this one from Sarah herself. "Wow, really classy of you, Lena. Can't even pay a small bill after everything I've done for you. You've always been selfish." That single line made something inside me snap. I'd spent months trying to keep the moral high ground, to stay kind, rational, forgiving. But forgiveness without accountability is just permission. Daniel noticed the look in my eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that it's time she learns what consequences feel like." He hesitated. "Lena." "No," I cut him off, surprising even myself. "She used my trust, my money, my name, and then called you less than a man. I'm done pretending she just needs help. She needs a mirror." That night, I logged into the baby registry account I had created for her. Rows and rows of gifts filled the screen: designer strollers, $1,000 bassinets, gold-plated diaper bags she insisted on adding, even when I warned her they were unrealistic. I had been the one who set it up for her, managed it, and even planned to cover some of the expensive items myself. Until now. With one click, I canceled my pending orders. With another, I deleted the registry entirely. If she wanted to start over, she could do it without me. As I hit confirm, my heart raced, not from revenge, but from release. When Daniel saw me shut the laptop, he asked softly, "Feel better?" I leaned back in the chair, exhaling. "I feel lighter." He smiled faintly. That's what boundaries feel like. For a few days, things were calm again. Then one evening, my inbox pinged. It was another email from Sarah, but this time it wasn't just petty. It was venom. "You're pathetic, Lena. You always have been. I'm glad you can't get pregnant. You'd make a terrible mother. Even God knows it. No wonder Daniel looks so miserable. He only married you for your money, and everyone knows it." The words blurred on the screen. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't anger. It was disbelief that someone I'd once loved like family could hate me so completely. Daniel found me frozen in front of the laptop. When he read the email, his face went red with fury. "That's it," he said. "No more ignoring. This crosses the line." He picked up his phone and called Mark. When Mark answered, his voice was flat tired. I figured this would happen, he said. She's been spiraling, sending me the same kind of messages, sometimes worse. She needs help, Daniel said, his voice low but trembling. Professional help. I know, Mark replied. I've talked to my lawyer. He told me to document everything. She's not listening to reason. She just wants to hurt people now. Mark came over the next night. He brought his phone full of screenshots, text threads, voice notes. Together we compared messages side by side, and it became painfully clear that she wasn't just angry, she was unraveling completely. Mark shook his head as he scrolled. This isn't the woman I married, he said quietly. It's like she's become someone else, someone who feeds on destruction. He showed us one message she'd sent him that morning. I hope you and your mistress rot together. I'll make sure your daughter never meets either of you. Daniel's jaw clenched. She's lost touch with reality. Mark nodded. My lawyer is already preparing the divorce papers. We sat there in silence for a long moment, the three of us bound, not by friendship anymore, but by the wreckage of one. The air in the room was heavy, and yet beneath it, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, clarity. She thinks I owe her everything I said finally. But she's wrong. I don't owe her forgiveness anymore. Mark looked up weary but grateful. You don't. None of us do. Before he left, he handed me a flash drive. These are all the emails and messages she sent, he said. If she keeps harassing you, give them to your lawyer. After he left, Daniel wrapped his arms around me. You okay? I nodded slowly. I think so. For the first time, I think I actually am. But as I lay in bed that night, my mind wouldn't quiet. I kept seeing Sarah's face, the one from years ago, laughing in the dorm room, making grand promises about our futures. And then like a flicker, it shifted into the face from the baby shower, painted smile, desperate eyes, the kind of grin people wear when they're drowning. I didn't pity her. Not anymore. But I did wonder how a person could destroy everything and still believe they were the victim. A week later, Mark returned to our home, not as a guest, but as someone who had finally surrendered to reality. He looked thinner, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. He carried a small folder under his arm filled with legal documents and printed screenshots. She's fighting the divorce, he said. His voice barely above a whisper. She wants to paint me as an abuser. Says I emotionally abandoned her during pregnancy. I poured him a cup of coffee while Daniel sat across from him. Did she really file that? Daniel asked, frowning. Mark nodded. Her lawyer called mine this morning. She's saying everything that happened, the prank, the videos, the texts were because I drove her to stress. It's insane. I felt my throat tighten. She's rewriting history, I murmured. He gave a tired laugh. Sarah always did that, didn't she? Twist a story until she looked like the hero. For a moment, none of us spoke. Outside, rain drizzled against the windows, soft and constant, the kind of weather that feels like the world is grieving with you. Mark opened the folder and slid a few printed emails across the table. These are from the past few days. Look. The first was sent to him. You ruined my life. You chose them over your own wife. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? They're laughing at me, Mark. I see the way she looks at you. Admit it. You wanted her all along. Then another. If you divorce me, I'll tell everyone you cheated with her. I'll make sure your daughter grows up hating you both. My stomach turned. There it was again, that same venom, that same blindness. Daniel reached for my hand under the table, squeezing gently. She's using guilt as a weapon, he said. She always did. Mark nodded, rubbing his temples. My lawyer says to stay silent. No responses, no reactions. He's documenting everything for court, but part of me still, I don't know, feels sorry for her. I did too, even if I didn't want to admit it. It's strange how pity can survive even after love and trust are gone. Later that night, after Mark left, Daniel and I sat in the quiet. The storm outside had grown louder, the wind pressing against the windows like restless fingers. She's not going to stop, Daniel said finally. Not until she runs out of people to blame. I sighed. Then maybe it's time to talk to her parents. He looked at me surprised. Are you sure? Yes, they deserve to know. Maybe they can help her before she destroys herself completely. We drafted an email together, calm, factual, compassionate. I attached copies of her most recent messages and told them gently that their daughter needed professional help. Not punishment. Help. When I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Not because it solved anything, but because it was the last thing I could do in good faith. The next morning, Sarah's mother called. Her voice trembled. Lena, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. She told us you abandoned her. I swallowed hard. I never abandoned her. I tried to help, but she wouldn't let me. Her mother sighed. She's not herself lately. She barely eats, barely sleeps. Mark's divorce hit her harder than she'll admit. We're trying to convince her to see someone. Please do, I said softly. She needs it more than she knows. That night, for the first time in months, I didn't dream about the baby shower. I didn't see the cameras or hear the whispers. Instead, I dreamed of a younger Sarah before the jealousy, before the bitterness. The girl who sang off-key during karaoke nights, who used to braid my hair before exams for luck. When I woke, I didn't feel anger anymore, just sorrow. A few days later, an envelope arrived at our door. Inside was a handwritten letter, shaky, erratic, written in blue ink that smudged at the edges. It was from Sarah. You turned everyone against me. Even my parents think I'm crazy now. You couldn't stand that I was finally happy, could you? You've always been jealous of me, my looks, my following my baby. You pretended to care, but you've been waiting for me to fail. I hope you're satisfied now. I folded the letter, neatly slipped it back into the envelope, and placed it in the drawer. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 2 weeks later, Mark called again. It's over, he said simply. The court granted the divorce. She keeps partial custody of the baby, but she's living with her parents for now. She's not stable enough to be alone. He paused. She sent me the same kind of letter she probably sent you. I didn't reply either. Good, I said. You shouldn't. She'll calm down eventually, he murmured. Maybe motherhood will change her. Maybe. We both knew it was a fragile hope, but it was something. That night, Daniel and I sat outside on the porch watching the sky clear after days of rain. He handed me a cup of tea and said quietly, You did everything you could, Lena. You tried to help her until there was nothing left to give. I nodded. I know. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and said, Don't let her poison stay in you. She doesn't get to live rent-free in your heart. I smiled faintly. I won't, I promise. Still, as the night deepened and the crickets began their quiet chorus, I whispered a small prayer for her. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because holding on to hate would only keep me chained to her chaos. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. 3 months later, life had begun to stitch itself back together piece by piece. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but in a quieter, steadier way. Daniel and I had taken some time off work, and for the first time in years, our days were slow. No deadlines, no phone buzzing with drama, just the sound of waves and laughter and the kind of silence that feels earned. We were in the Maldives, our first real vacation since everything happened. The ocean shimmered like glass sunlight, catching every ripple. I remember standing at the edge of the water, feeling the salt on my skin, thinking, maybe this is what healing actually feels like, not forgetting, but remembering, without pain. Daniel came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. You're a million miles away, he said softly. Maybe that's exactly where I need to be, I smiled. He kissed the top of my head. You deserve peace, Lena. We both do. For the first time, I didn't argue. We'd heard updates about Sarah through mutual friends. She'd moved back in with her parents after the divorce was finalized. The court had ordered shared custody, but Mark had primary care of the baby. He visited Sarah's home twice a week for supervised exchanges. Apparently, she rarely left her room. There were whispers that her influencer deals had all dried up. No sponsors, no brand collaborations, no audience left to watch her curated chaos. Her old Instagram account sat abandoned, her last post still captioned, You can't trust anyone. It felt like a sad echo of someone who no longer existed. Mark, on the other hand, seemed lighter. He'd started seeing a therapist focused on rebuilding his life around his daughter, little Clara. He sent us a photo once Clara in his arms, her tiny hand gripping his finger. Beneath the image, he'd written, She's my reason to stay kind. That message stayed with me. We met up with him a few weeks later back home. He looked healthier, sun on his skin, calm in his eyes. Over dinner, he told us about the custody hearings, how Sarah had tried to contest every clause, how her lawyer eventually withdrew from the case after she refused to cooperate. The judge told her she needed counseling, Mark said quietly. She refused at first, but her parents are insisting now. Maybe it'll help, I said, though my voice didn't sound convinced. He smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the first step. After dinner, Mark handed me something, a small sealed envelope. She asked me to give you this, he said. I read it. It's not cruel this time. I think she's trying. I hesitated, staring at the envelope. My heart beat faster, the old anxiety creeping back. Do you think I should read it? Mark shrugged gently. It's up to you. But it sounded like someone who finally realizes she broke something she can't fix. That night after Mark left, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The envelope waited beside my tea. Daniel came in, saw it, and didn't say a word. He just placed a hand on my shoulder and waited. I opened it slowly. Lena. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to make this right. Maybe there isn't anything. I told myself I was the victim, but I wasn't. I hurt you because I hated myself. I thought if I could make you smaller, I'd feel bigger. I don't even recognize the person I became. Mark won't talk to me. My parents barely look at me, and I know I deserve that. But I think about that day, the baby shower, and I can't stop replaying your face. I thought I was being funny. I thought if people laughed, I'd finally feel seen. Instead, I destroyed the only real friendship I ever had. You don't have to forgive me, but I needed you to know. I see it now. I'm sorry. Sarah. The words blurred as I read them, not because they were beautiful, but because they were human, broken and clumsy, but finally honest. Daniel took the letter when I finished. What do you want to do with it? He asked. Nothing, I said. It's enough to know she finally understands. I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer with the others, not as evidence, not as anger, but as closure. In the months that followed, Daniel and I settled into a rhythm that felt new but comforting. We decided to stop chasing what we'd lost, the dreams of parenthood that had haunted us, and start embracing what we already had, each other. Every Sunday we kept a ritual. No phones, no work, just us, driving somewhere new, eating at small cafes, walking until the sun dipped low. Sometimes we'd talk about the past, but mostly we talked about the future. One Sunday evening, Daniel looked at me as we watched the sunset paint the sky. You know, he said softly, you never got the apology you deserved from her back then, but you got the one you needed now. I smiled. Maybe that's all life ever gives us, the version of closure we can live with. He nodded, and maybe that's enough. As the sky turned gold and violet, I thought about everything that had happened, the laughter, the betrayal, the pain, and the long road to peace. Sarah would always be a part of my story, but she no longer defined it. Mark had found strength in fatherhood, and I had found strength in letting go. Some endings aren't clean. They're messy, incomplete, and full of unanswered questions. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop searching for why and start living with what is. I took Daniel's hand and whispered, "Let's go home." Because home wasn't a place anymore, it was peace. And finally, it was ours again.